All right. Hey everybody, I'm Mark Smith with Cabarrus County Beekeepers, and
I'm Bob Blackwater with the Cabarrus County Beekeepers.
So glad to have y'all here. This is our August 2020 Hive and Flower Report video that we're doing for the club. Since we can't get together and have meetings, we're doing these videos because of course the most spectacular part of every meeting was always the Hive and Flower Report, right?
Yeah, and that's debatable. I'd say that's real debatable. But people seem to enjoy it. And so in an effort to keep stuff going a little bit,
that's right.
So we can sit down for a few minutes and do these. And I think it's better than nothing.
It's better than nothing.
And I don't like nothing.
That's right.
I mean, I just don't. So I think it's healthy if we talk about bees a little bit and keep our mind where it needs to be on the bees.
That's true.
So
what's been going on with you, Bob?
Well, oddly enough, I've been getting a few phone calls here in the last week or so, and it's pretty common for this time of year. I've been beekeeping a long time. Yeah. So a lot of people know my name as a beekeeper, okay? And so when they have a bee-related problem, as they see it, and I'm gonna put problem in the quotes, okay? They see it as a problem. I don't necessarily see it as a problem all the time.
Right.
But they want to talk to a beekeeper, okay? And most of the time, when I get one of those phone calls, and it'll be just from the general public, shall we say, okay? Somebody's given them my name and number, or they know me from some reason or other, and they got my name and number, or even the extension service gives them my name and number.
Because you are famous.
It says, no, not famous.
Infamous?
But where they have trouble answering the question, they say, ask somebody maybe knows the answer.
Right.
Maybe. So anyway, I've been getting a few of those calls this time of year, and I usually do this time of year. And oddly enough, most people can't tell you what they're looking at.
Yeah.
They can't tell you if it's a honeybee, it's a yellow jacket, or it's a wasp, or a hornet. They don't know. So identification is a problem for the general public, to get right down to it. They think everything that flies is a bee.
Yeah.
And obviously it's going to sting them, and they're going to die from it, okay? And also the other thing you hear commonly is, and there's kids in this neighborhood. Well, there's kids in every neighborhood. Yeah. So that's not unique. And again, that's not a threat. Probably the bees are under more threat from the kids than the kids are from the bees, get right down to it.
I know when I was little, me and my cousins, we were big threats to the bees. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know why we did it, but we would run through the yard and see who could step on it, how many bees we could step on and not get stung.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had big contests.
Yeah.
Everybody used to do that. And catch them in jars and see how many you get in a jar before you let one out, all that good stuff. But I do get a few calls this time of year on that, okay? And of course I try to be polite, because again, I see we representing beekeepers, okay? And so when you're talking to somebody that doesn't know quite as much about how bees behave, shall we say, and sometimes you get a legitimate question where the bees, there actually are honeybees in a house maybe, okay? And so what's some of the options they have? We have to go through that with them. But this time of year especially, people will see a bee and immediately say, I got a problem with them. Well, do you or not? A little bit depends on what they are, where they are. And so I try to take some time and really talk to people to get them comfortable and try to get a better identification from them, okay, a little bit. And the shape of the bee is different than the shape from a hornet or a wasp. And the color is different than a yellow jacket. So you try to get a little better description to see what they're dealing with. That way you know a little bit better how to answer it. But again, I try to make it a little educational for them, as much as just saying, man, here, do this. So a little bit depends on where they are, of course, and what they are. And most of the time after you quiz them enough, they can get more of a description for you, and so you can really figure out what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
But this time of year you see a lot more questions, and it'll be yellow jackets, okay? And they'll say, I've got bees in the ground. Well, guess what? Yellow jackets.
Yeah.
More times than not. And so, or I've got bees under the eave of my porch. More times than not, was that going to be wasp, paper wasp?
That's right.
Okay. Or I've got a bee's nest in my tree, and they out there hanging in that tree. And of course, the first question I ask is, what shape is it in? Is it in the shape of a football? Well, yes, it is. I said, are there just bees hanging on each other? Well, no. I said, it's a paper looking nest. Oh yeah, it's you know how you see on in the cartoons. It's a beehive.
Yeah.
And the bees coming out the bottom of it. Well, what is that? It's hornets.
Yeah.
Totally different. So it depends on the game plan. And again, sometimes, oddly enough, and people want to get rid of them, immediately want to get rid of them. But I kind of talk them out of there lots of times. Now, that won't be the case on yellow jackets, because you mow over yellow jackets in the yard, what happens to you?
You're in trouble.
You get stung. Yeah, they're gonna chase you, and you're probably gonna get stung a couple of times. Never a pleasant experience. Not in the world necessarily, but not a pleasant experience. But sometimes that hornet's nest is 25 and 30 foot up in the air, and a tree in the very backyard, it ain't hurting nobody.
No.
And the best thing to do there, and the safest thing to do, is leave it alone. Don't do nothing. Because you start monkeying with it, that's when you get stung.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of people don't realize what do hornets eat? What's the benefit of hornets? They see no benefit in hornets, and I do see benefits because they eat other insects. Now, they can be a pest to our bees sometimes.
Yeah.
There would definitely sometime on landing boards pick up bees and eat bees. But there's usually not many hornets compared to, shall we say, the population of a hive, so I don't see it as a threat to a hive. But the other thing, their favorite food happens to be houseflies.
Really?
Okay, their very favorite food is houseflies. I don't particularly care for houseflies, to be honest.
Yeah, me neither.
And so sometimes why do you see hornets around the door? Because you've been cooking inside, and that smells good. Okay, and so when you go in and out the door, those odors go out and in out the door. So now you got food odors around the door, which attracts houseflies. The houseflies in turn attract a few hornets that's looking around the doors for their flies. So I see that being a pretty well good thing.
Yeah.
And they're not after you. They really not after you. Now, you do something aggressive to one, yeah, he's after you. But if you just be neutral to him, it's not a problem. But people get excited on that, and they need some confidence of what's going on and what the threat level really is. Okay. And rarely is the threat level very high. I've seen a few cases, not the case. It'd be a hornet's nest in a bush right beside the steps going into the house. That can be a little different issue there.
That's a problem.
That's a problem. And again, usually those problems, the people themselves can handle if they know what to do. And it won't cost you $100 with an exterminator.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you're not comfortable at all, yeah, the exterminator is the deal. But most of the time, people can handle that themselves, so they know a little bit and be more comfortable with what they're doing.
Yeah.
And you can talk them through that. And again, give them the assurance that if they have complication, they can call you back, and you'll be glad to talk to them. So instead of a short answer, I try to explain that a little bit longer, like I have here, dragging on, to make them more comfortable of what they can do, what they can deal with, and not be excited and feel a little bit better. I think that's an obligation of a beekeeper, to be honest.
And I think that's a good thing to do because society now is programmed that stuff like that is automatically bad.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
when
And people also program to think things need to happen instantly.
yeah.
And with bees and dealing with the environment, that ain't necessarily the case. You know
Right.
what I mean? That's not necessarily the case.
Right.
But that is an issue this time of year. I think beekeepers kind of owe it to the general public to keep them informed, and when somebody has an issue, to talk to them and offer some assistance. Occasionally, now I don't usually offer up front to go look at the problem, but there's a few that's entertaining enough, shall we say, for me to go actually look at it.
Right.
And most times it's a non-issue. I
Yeah.
mean, I have literally seen a case, the woman was terribly upset. I mean, just out of the frame upset, okay? And it wasn't too terrible far away. So I did go look at it. This has been several years back. I did go look at it, and the issue was, she says, bees all over my front yard, okay? I'm going, this don't sound right. It just didn't put together right. So I did go look. What was all over her front yard was June bugs. June bugs, you know how they fly a couple inches up to a foot or two off the yard, just hanging around. And the June bugs had hatched out. Of course, they live in the ground, the little larvae do, and when they come up, they start flying around. And she was scared of those June bugs. She was positive they were big bees, and then she was going to get stung.
Yeah.
It's nothing but June bugs.
Yeah.
So after physically catching a couple of them and showing them that, hey, it ain't nothing but a June bug, it cannot sting you.
Yeah.
Well, she was fine then.
Yeah. When I was 9 or 10 years old, June bugs, of course I shouldn't probably tell this, but that's okay. June bugs was cheap entertainment with me and my cousins. We'd catch them, tie a little piece of grandma's
Sewing thread.
sewing thread to it, and that's just like a kite. Just,
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Again, I'm a little older, but we do the same thing. I mean, we take a little piece of sewing thread, tie it to a hind leg, and you can fly that June bug around your head for a while.
Yeah.
And then finally say, I'm tired of it, and just let him go, and he'd fly on off.
That's right.
And by the way, I've noticed too, when that happens, you never get your thread back.
No.
Who knows where he flies to, but you don't get your thread back.
That's right. That's right.
And so, but that's awful good entertainment. But again, sometimes people don't understand what things are, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
They've been inside too much, shall we say.
Yeah.
And that does make a difference. I think it does make a difference.
That's true. Well, Bob, you been in your bees lately?
Well, not really, not much. Just kind of watching the outside more than anything.
Right.
So it's been hot, and I'm fat and I'm old. So I sweat heavy.
Yeah.
And so I don't like to be leaning over a hive and water's running in my eyes and down my back, and I got water dripping off my nose into the hive.
That's a bad plan.
Things don't go as well,
Right.
okay? And so I've been kind of holding off on that a little bit, but I've been kind of looking at the outsides, okay? Now I've got some that I need to do a little, shall we say, grass maintenance in front of,
Oh, yeah.
okay? And so I will caution people that you might want to take a look at that a little bit, because I do need to do a little maintenance on some of that.
Yeah, I did that last weekend.
So I've got some grass a little too high in the front in a few cases.
Yeah.
The bees are coming in higher and dropping down, shall we say.
Yeah.
They hadn't cut the bees' activity off, but I feel sure they're talking bad about me. At night, they're talking bad about me.
Made it more challenging for
Yeah,
them.
no doubt, because the flight path is not very good, shall we
That's
say. So I do need to do some maintenance on that I'm positive on from what I saw. But again, the bees should have brood, okay, this time of year. They should have some brood. We're getting right at the window here, because we're right here at the 1st of September. So right at the window of starting to have some of our winter bees hatch off.
Yeah.
Okay, and so some of the bees that's hatching off now are actually going to be the nurse bees that raise our winter bees.
Yeah.
And that's pretty important. That's pretty important to get a good population of those nurse bees that go in the winter. The main thing I had been watching for is how much really look like foraging activity I've been seeing. I've seen an amazingly good bit of foraging activity.
Me too.
And that's encouraging.
Yeah.
That really is encouraging. And again, the hives seem to be holding up their weight good this year.
Yeah.
Okay, which again, I contribute that mainly to the ground moisture. We've had some showers all along. We got heavy ground moisture, get right down to it. And that's really helping everything that's trying to bloom right now.
Yeah.
And we're right at the front end of our fall flow. Now some years, obviously, we don't get much of a fall flow if it's dry and hot.
Yeah.
Well, it's hot, but it's not dry. And so I think it's really gonna help our fall flow this year. Just like the rumors I've heard, and I've heard several people tell me, the mountain guys are saying that took bees to mountains and have bees in the mountains, that their sourwood flow has been good.
Yeah.
At least I've heard that report from several different cases. And so I contribute that again to the ground moisture.
Yeah.
They've had a wet spring and a wet summer, and that makes a difference.
Yeah.
It takes moisture. But again, I think the hives are gaining weight right now, which normally I'd say is too early for that.
Yeah.
So that's actually surprised me. I would not rule out right now, if you got a strong colony, put empty super on them.
Yeah.
Put empty super on. You may be surprised.
Yeah.
Now the fall honeys typically are darker, but they typically have more flavor.
Yeah.
And so it can be called, quote again, table grade honey. And I've had the experience several different times where people that taste some of our darker honey like it.
Yeah.
They like it a lot. Then they start requesting the darker honey.
Yeah.
Because it really does have more flavor to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen a little bump in drone sales in my colonies, because June and July, when it was so hot, they kind of stopped. Yeah, I actually saw them kick a bunch of them out.
Yep.
But this past weekend, when I started doing my inspections, I'm starting to see more drones being raised. So
And that's a good sign.
that is a good sign.
Drones are always a good indicator of the condition of that colony.
Yep.
Because under dearth conditions, or I hate to say starvation conditions, guess who's the first ones out?
Them.
The drones. They'll quit raising drones, they'll quit feeding drones.
Yeah.
Now usually when they quit feeding drones, oddly enough, drones will drift. Don't think your drones will stay in your hive all the time. That's not the case.
Yeah, they're not that loyal.
No, drones are not loyal to that hive at all. Okay, and so drones, if he gets a little hungry, and the groceries don't look good at home, shall we say, in his hive,
Yeah.
He'll just move to another hive and say, "What's for supper?" Okay, and again, Bees are unique a little bit because, again, let's face it, them worker bees, when that drone says I'm hungry, if there's food available, they feed them.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so, of course, that satisfies the drone, so guess where he's going to go back to?
Yeah.
The colony he was raised in? No, I'm going to go to the colony that feed me.
Yeah.
Okay?
So I guess that's one reason why you've hung around here so long is because your queen
Feeds me.
takes real good care of her drone.
That's right. She cooks supper and I get fed, and so I come back. Yeah, I may be a little later coming back sometimes, but again, I come back. And so drones do the same thing, but drones will drift a lot. So don't worry about the adult flying drone population, but especially in the brood. When you see drones in the brood, that's a healthy sign for that colony.
Yeah.
It really is, because the bees see them as the first expendable bee.
Yeah.
And so they'll quit them. And also, I've seen them actually remove the larvae before.
Oh yeah.
Instead of going ahead and raising the larvae already,
Yeah. I've seen them do that too.
they'll actually remove the larvae.
Yeah.
And that's when the bees are saying, well, things are getting tight.
Yeah. And most of the time when I've seen them do that, if I go down to the hives early in the morning, they'll carry them out over the course of the night.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of throw them out there on the landing board and then do something with them in the morning.
Yep, absolutely, they'll do that. Again, see, bees are working all night long too.
Yeah.
So they're not taking no night break, and so they're there.
Yeah.
But having drones is a good sign.
Yeah.
And I will mention maybe a couple other things that has come up. People are seeing right now more small hive beetles than normal.
Yeah.
And again, we got to ask ourselves, what's going on there? As I view it, there's going to be a few small hive beetles in every colony. A few.
Yeah.
When I see that 4 or 5 and they run around the top of the frames, I don't get too concerned. Of course, like, you know, everybody likes to take a hive tool and smash one.
Oh, that's like a game.
That's right. It's like a game. It's
What's
the
that old-
Pac-Man game. It's the old Pac-Man game where they're going to eat them up.
Yeah, or whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole. There you go. And again, they can be challenging because they can be fast.
Yeah.
And if you got the frame up in your hands, don't think he won't dive in a cell in a heartbeat.
That's right.
Don't think he's going to stay up on the top all the time. So he'll dive in that cell, which hard to get out of.
Yeah,
Okay?
that's true.
You'll do more damage there than he's worth, shall
Yeah.
we say. But people are seeing a lot more small hive beetles. And it doesn't surprise me at this time of year, okay, to see more. But I think a factor on that, again, is we've had a lot of moisture.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of moisture and that humidity. I think the high humidity we've been having is really a better environment, shall we say, for those small hive beetles to reproduce.
Yeah.
And so, and again, with the ground moisture, of course, they pupate in the ground, and I think that's encouraging them that much more.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of interesting. I did hear of one situation where there was some small hive beetles in an open container where the guy was feeding some syrup in the open.
Huh.
And small hive beetles went to that syrup.
Yeah.
That's the first I've ever heard of that.
Yeah. I've never heard that.
And oddly enough, he had some poundage in there to keep the bees from drowning.
Yeah.
Okay. And when he dumps it out, I actually saw larvae, small hive beetle larvae.
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't have never thought it. That was a new for me. I wouldn't have thought it. And this is an older, really experienced beekeeper that saw that. And so he called me to say, Bob, you ever seen that? I'd never seen that before.
Yeah.
I knew what he was doing. I know why. We maybe talk about that for a second. This time of year, and again, we're getting right, a little bit past that maybe, but robbing can be a problem, okay? And so if you're trying to raise maybe a few queens or something, and you're gonna be in some hives, you know, pretty couple of days straight and often, if you leave that top open very much and got frames exposed, you're gonna get other bees looking at them, okay? And once that starts, that can be hard to stop.
Oh yeah.
And you can lose a colony from robbing it, okay? So the best thing, how to stop it, is to prevent it. Like a lot of things in life, how do you stop it? Well, you actually try to prevent it.
Yeah.
And so one of the preventions for that, especially in hot weather, again, when the bees are robbing a little bit or trying to, first thing, instead of smoking the colony you're working, normally I just smoke the colony I'm working, smoke it to start with, wait a couple minutes before I open it, pop a little smoke on the top, okay? But in a dearth or more of a dearth situation, smoke every colony in that yard, smoke everybody at the same time. Just walk down the road smoking them pretty good in the front entrances, okay? Then when you come back, take the lids off, take the top covers off and lay them down in front. Everybody, top cover off, everybody. Now everybody has the same problem,
Yeah.
okay? And so now they're more interested in their stuff. And you'll see the bees coming up on the frames. You know how they just come up, and those cover the whole top because they're coming up, trying to figure out what's going on.
It's like, man, who opened the door?
That's right. Who took the top off us? We need a roof. And they'll actually spill over lots of times on the sides, which I don't worry about. But they're too worried about themselves to pay attention to the colony really working. So that can really modify, shall we say, how much robbing you can get started. So that's the first good step. This guy's situation a little bit different because he's trying to raise a few queens. So, and again, he started this a couple years ago. I had recommended this to him as a robbing remedy. Why do bees rob? Because they ain't got nothing to do. Okay, they're looking for food and the opportunity. So go out there 50 yards or so out in front of the colonies. He'd had nothing but a big old foot tub. Okay, and so in that foot tub, what he does is puts a couple inches of pine needles. He pours some syrup in there. In his case, he was using 2-to-1 syrup, which really didn't matter. But then he adds about 3 times that much water. Okay, so you got syrup in there, and you can slop a little bit on the sides if you want to. You do that the afternoon before you're going to work the bees the next morning.
Yeah.
Okay, so you really train those bees to go to that syrup. You get a lot of bees started on that syrup. Of course, they're going to recruit other bees to go to that syrup.
Yeah.
So the first thing by late afternoon, then you got a lot of bees on that syrup, a lot. Well, the next morning, guess what they're going to look for? You're going to go back to that syrup source because it was successful the day before.
Yeah.
So let's try it again. So again, they got a lot of bees going out there. The scouts are going out there. They're checking it. Yeah, there's still syrup here. That information is coming back. So you got bees focuses on this outside feeder, open feeding. And I'm not a big advocate of open feeding for general purposes.
Yeah.
But this is where you're trying to prevent robbing, and where you can do your queen work or whatever you're trying to do if you're grafting. So it's a stopgap measure. But it would concentrate them bees on that. And then guess what? They'll stay away from your hive. They won't rob near as much. So it's a good robbing solution. And somewhat entertaining, get right down to it.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple years ago, I do a lot of summer splits 1st of June. And I like taking them splits in 5-frame nukes and putting them up on 4x4s. Cement block. I might have 5 or 6 of them in one little spot. But when I go down and start checking them, like you said, I'll just take the lid off every one of them.
Yep.
Every one of them.
Yep, absolutely.
And I've never really had a robbing problem when I did that.
Right.
Just because.
That moderates that a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to prevent it than it is to stop it.
Yeah.
Now, when a full-blown case of robbing is happening, that could be hard to stop.
Man, I've got out there with sprinklers,
Mm-hmm.
water hoses,
Mm-hmm.
old sheets.
Mm-hmm. Bad words.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It can be hard to stop.
Yeah.
It really does. I ain't saying there's not some things you can do to really reduce it, but it can be hard to stop.
Yeah.
And again, just because you got stopped one day, don't mean the robbers won't try to check it the next day.
Well, they look at it as a food source.
That's it. That's it.
They remember it.
It's an opportunity, and so
Yeah.
they're opportunists, and so they, in a foraging type situation, they got to take advantage of it, and they will.
Yeah.
So it's easier to prevent than it is to stop.
That's right.
I've seen some cases where you couldn't stop it. I mean,
Yeah.
it was uncontrollable.
Yeah.
And again,
I've
that's
seen that
sad. Yeah, that's sad when that happens.
Yeah.
The other thing I need to mention for this time of year, there's a few people seeing swarms. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is there a true swarm or not? It can be, okay, because we're at the front end of a flow, and you got a good population of bees, so the bees are somewhat crowded, and on that front end of the flow, sometimes the bees will say, let's swarm, okay, and they'll make sales and do a real swarm. But oddly enough, you got to be real suspicious, because sometimes that's not a true swarm.
Yeah.
Okay, so you better look in that hive that you think that swarm came out of. More times than not, this time of year, they are absconding.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got a story on that one. Had a nuke the other day abscond.
Mm-hmm.
I watched them take off. It's like, where are them bees going? Well, I couldn't figure out why they did it. And most of the time, as you know, it's either a pest issue or a disease issue.
Right.
Something's going on.
Right.
Well, this particular nuke was sitting on the very end, next to the woods, of a row of nukes I had on some timbers. So they caught the sun late
Mm-hmm.
and caught the shade early.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what got in there?
Small hive beetles.
Small hive beetles.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched them suckers go in that tree. And I thought, why are they swarming? And I saw what box they came out of. I went over and looked, there was no bees in it, but
Bunches of small hive.
500 small hive bees.
Yep, yep.
So I did like this. I said, I'll see y'all later. Just let them go. And shook everything out of the box and figured that, you know.
And that occurrence is not rare this time of year.
Yeah.
When that small hive beetle population gets up, the bees are thinking to themselves, what can we do?
Yeah.
They physically can't move those beetles.
Yeah.
Okay, they can't carry them away. And the beetles will fly anyway, so if they did carry them out and dump them out in the grass, if they could, which they can't,
Yeah.
the beetles will come right back.
Yeah.
Okay? And of course, then once you get a hive that's beginning to get stressed, shall we say, for any reason, the small hive beetles know that.
Yeah.
And they'll focus on that hive.
Yeah.
And I'm positive it will draw small hive beetles out of other colonies around there to that colony
Oh, yeah.
to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Again, they're opportunists.
Yeah.
And so they'll do that. So controlling small hive beetles will make a big difference on those bees trying to swarm, which is really a pest problem.
Yeah.
It's not a true swarm. They're trying to escond because they got a pest problem.
That's right.
Yeah.
And just as a little explanation for the people watching, the reason I mentioned the sunlight, you know, the sun coming up, hitting that colony late, and then the shade hitting it late in the afternoon, you know, and it wasn't getting a lot of sunlight on it, is because I have found that one of the biggest deterrents for small hive beetle is full sun. Keeping them in the full sun, and that's one reason why that one, I think, had an issue, because it didn't get as much direct sunlight as the rest of them.
And again, a degree or two makes a big difference, that
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of stuff.
Yeah.
So why not pick, the hive beetles looking at it from a standpoint of why not pick the best of the
Yeah.
locations for us?
Yeah.
Okay, so that all makes sense. But that is a problem this time of year.
Yeah.
And so you need to watch your small hive beetle control, okay? I've had good success with the sheets on top as far as catching beetles. Is there hermescent? No, no way. But it makes me feel better when I see an old handful of beetles entrapped in there, okay?
Yeah.
And so that always makes me feel better. But it's not 100%, but I think it's a good control, a good safe control. So I'm not worried about the beekeeper. I'm not worried about the bees from that
Yeah.
standpoint.
Yeah.
And again, I think rarely do you need much else.
Yeah.
I will tell you that one time, it's been a few years ago, at that time I was running a few more out yards than what I do now. But most of them didn't have but, 3 or 4 colonies in an out yard. And I had an out yard that I had stopped and checked the bees on. Bees looked pretty good. I had one, again, a good big population of bees. I couldn't quite figure it out because like you were saying, the hive beetles had picked this one hive. The others, I saw no beetles. This one hive had beetles like you wouldn't believe. I mean, scary amount. I mean, they were running out there like everything. Oh my gosh almighty. They're way out of control. The world's ending, okay? Well, oddly enough, at that time, I had been using some of the beetle traps, okay? I had good success except for the propolis the bees put in the little openings. But anyway, in the truck with me, did I have any beetle traps?
No.
No, of course not. Did I have any sheets with me? No, of course not. Okay, so I wasn't prepared what it boils down to.
Right.
Okay, so Bob tells myself, bees, hang on. I know these things are aggravating. They're a big pest to you. I'm going to help you tomorrow. It's like the old doctor saying, take an aspirin, call me tomorrow.
That's right.
Okay, so I got to put you off. So I said, tomorrow, first thing, I'm going to go over and treat that hive for small hive beetles. I'm going to put a sheet or 2 in it. I'm going to put a couple of beetle traps in it. And I'll use the little beetle barns.
Right.
So I'm going to put a couple of them in there and a couple of sheets. See if I can't knock the beetle numbers down. Went over mid-morning the next day with my stuff in hand, ready to do it. Knew exactly which colony, okay, because I had them numbered, of course, my ear tag numbers. Had my numbers. Had already taken a brick and stood it upright to really catch my attention. That way Bob's sorry memory wouldn't forget. So I go over, smoke that colony just a little bit. This bee's foraging, I smoked that colony just a little bit, popped the top, expecting to see beetles run everywhere again. Guess what?
No beetles.
No beetles. I went, whoa here. I know this was the right colony. No beetles. I start pulling a couple frames, looking, shaking a little bit, no beetles. To this day, I have no explanation of why one day, there was hundreds of beetles. No larvae. I didn't see no beetle larvae, but beetles, adult beetles. The very next day, I could find none. None. I have no explanation for that.
That's crazy.
The only thing I can figure, They read my mind. They were pathic. They read my mind. They knew I was coming back the next day to do harm to them. They decided it was time to hit the air, and they moved. I did look at the other colonies, thinking maybe they just moved over. I can't say I saw none, but very low numbers in the other colonies, just a few.
Yeah.
So this didn't move over one. So I'm going, who can explain that?
Yeah.
Beetles will move.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's just one of those things that you'll see and not know.
Yeah, well, the scientists tell us some beetles will fly for miles.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm getting more and more convinced that's true, and it's not unique for them to do that.
Yeah.
So there's beetles out there flying around just looking for a hive to make a new home out of.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty unique, but that shocked me, and I still don't have a real good hard handle on the explanation for that.
Yeah.
But
That's definitely odd. So Bob, what are you seeing bloom? You seeing anything bloom much?
I'm not seeing a whole lot. I'm seeing more activity from the bees than what I am blossom-wise.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm seeing, the main thing I'm seeing right now is some sumac. We got some later sumac blooming right now, and it's looking good. The bees are working it good, and it's a good source. Bees love it. My daggum vitex tree out here, my little vitex bush, it's still blooming. That's unique for this year. Normally it's finished by now, but it bloomed the second time this year, which is, I think, unique too. But the bees are still working it some, and they seem to be working it all day. But again, if I'm looking at the colonies just a little bit, the pollen I'm seeing coming in, I've seen some white pollen coming in. I don't know if you've ever witnessed that or not.
Oh,
And I happen to know what that's from. Yeah, that's Cerisa lespedeza.
Ooh.
Cerisa lespedeza has a real small blossom on it. Not a very showy blossom. Just riding by it, you'll never see the blossom. So the blossom's kind of hid. It's a little white blossom, but the bees do work it, and they work it for pollen mainly. Nectar-wise, I'm not sure it produces nectar. I've heard some older guys tell me it will, but I haven't seen that myself,
Yeah.
but I have seen the pollen. I've seen the bees on it with white pollen on their hind legs, and I've seen it in the hives before. And I've seen it on hind legs of bees coming into the hive.
Yeah.
It's the only white pollen that I know of is that Cerisa lespedeza.
Yeah.
Well, it's blooming right now. So the bees were definitely working it some. Bicolor lespedeza, which you don't see much of anymore. Years ago, you see a lot more of it. Guys used to plant for the quail and stuff. Of course, it'll grow up head high.
Right.
I mean, it makes a small bush. It's blooming right now. I've seen a couple little spots of it blooming. The bees work it good too, but it's not much of it around. I see that. I've seen out here in my wife's horse pasture, which has got a bunch of bittleweed in it, which is from overgrazing. Horses, of course, pull grass up by the roots and eat grass roots and all,
Yeah.
and leave weeds for you, if you want to say it's a weed. But that bitterweed's blooming, and I've seen bees working it, which I don't think is one of their favorites, but they will definitely work it. So I've been seeing bees working it pretty much.
I'm seeing a bunch of them still working crepe myrtles.
And I have seen the same thing.
Yeah.
But again, I'm still noticing they prefer the white ones.
Oh yeah, they always prefer the white.
They prefer the white ones.
Yeah.
I did look at one the other day. The white one had a good many bees working it.
Yeah.
There was a red one, and I mean it was really just burgundy red. It wasn't a pink. It was not the old time pink. This was a burgundy, dark red. Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
I couldn't see a single bee on it.
Yeah. It's
And these
amazing.
trees wasn't but 100 foot apart.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see a single bee on it.
Yeah, it's amazing how they'll.
Yeah, pick and choose.
Yeah, they're not colorblind.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I like cake.
Yeah.
And I like some cakes better than others. So the bees are doing the same thing.
That's right.
Ain't no doubt, the bees are doing the same. But I think it's interesting, the crepe myrtles, and still a lot of crepe myrtles blooming.
Yeah.
And they're blooming good this year. A lot of ground moisture again, which is helping them.
That's true.
And there's a little white flower blooming now. It actually grows on a vine. It's usually a little low shrubby vine that's growing up, using in waste areas type situations. It's got a white flower, and this year they are blooming immensely. And I don't know what they are, but I do question that the bees are working them some. And so I think it's a morning type thing. Again, all day it ain't necessarily the same for all plants.
Yeah.
But I noticed there's a lot of blossoms on them this year.
Yeah.
I don't know the name of them. I need to get Todd's little phone app where he can take a picture of it, and the app will tell him
Yeah.
what the flower is.
Yeah.
That's a good app, by the way. I don't know if you've ever seen them or not.
Yeah, I've got it on my phone.
And my phone won't do that. See, my flip phone doesn't do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so,
Low tech.
Yeah, low tech, real low tech. And so just the thing lower than my flip phone is write your note on a rock and tie a string around it and chunk it to the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Well, there at the house, we've got, out there in the field, I kind of let it go wild. I got some passion flower vines.
Mhm.
They're working that. And another thing they're working a lot of right now is, I guess for pollen, is plantain.
mhm.
The little seed
Yeah, yeah,
pods on
yeah.
the top of them.
Yeah, I've seen them multiple times work it, and they're working it for pollen. That's what they're
Yeah.
working it for pollen. And that's common. I haven't seen it this year, even though I got some I need to be mowing for hay. I've seen them work Johnson grass for pollen before,
Ooh, how about
and
that?
people don't normally think about that, but it's a
Yeah.
grass that has a pollen. So they'll work corn tassels.
Yeah,
Guess what? It's in the same family more or less, and so they'll work pollen off of Johnson grass. I've seen it happen. Yeah.
yeah,
That's a little unique, I think. I don't think it's a favorite. Again, don't think it's a favorite, but again, and I think it's healthy for bees to have a multiple source of pollens.
oh, absolutely.
And the more we read about that, that seems to be more and more important,
Yeah,
is a multiple source of pollens.
yeah, I've had a couple of people mention to me they're seeing goldenrod bloom. And what a lot of people don't realize here in the southern Piedmont, North Carolina, where we live, there's two kinds of goldenrod. There's a short and a tall. Well, I've seen the short is starting to bloom. But the tall is really not. I've seen some ironweed almost ready to open. It's got that purple got
Hinge.
that hinge.
Yeah.
It's almost ready to open.
Yep, yeah, I saw the same thing.
Yeah.
And again, I've got some hayland that is pretty well growed up that is ready to mow.
Yeah.
But again, I'm seeing goldenrod in it. I've actually seen some of the taller goldenrod. The short goldenrod is not one of their favorites.
No.
They'll usually pass it for something else. But the taller goldenrod, they like it a lot.
Yeah.
They work it heavy. And I've seen some of it starting to bloom, just on the front edge, just
Yeah.
starting. But again, from what I'm seeing, the fall flower looks encouraging.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a healthy situation.
Yeah. Unless something crazy happens.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have a pretty good fall flow here.
Yeah. And I even think right now, your hive should be gaining weight right now.
Yeah.
And so, wouldn't hurt to stick a soup on.
Yeah.
Sure wouldn't hurt.
Well, with mine, I'm letting all that go in for winter.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'll let
Oh,
them
yeah.
keep all that.
And I'm not saying deny them space,
Yeah.
you know, for them. But we know they're gonna fill theirs up low first and it moves up.
Yeah.
And so that super on top is gonna be the last. So
Yeah.
yours is the last coming in, shall we say.
That's right.
The, but,
But I've got a bunch of buckwheat planted in some little plots I use in my garden, more for a cover crop.
yeah, oh yeah.
And yeah, that's a great thing to use if you've got a little spot that you can let the buckwheat grow
Oh yeah.
for 30 days. You know, I'd always heard from seed to bloom, 30 days. And I said, there ain't no way.
Oh, it's a way.
Oh, golly, man, the first time I ever planted buckwheat, it was amazing how fast it went. It got to where it bloomed. But that's good stuff.
It is very good stuff. But still you gotta understand buckwheat, that it only produces in the mornings.
Yeah,
Usually around lunchtime to 1 o'clock, it's over.
yeah,
And that afternoon, you do not wanna work those bees.
no,
They don't understand that sudden stop. It's a sudden stop.
yeah,
And it really ticks them off,
yeah,
because they made an extra trip out there and didn't get anything.
yeah,
And that, they don't like that.
yeah,
They don't like that. So that does make the bees a little more temperamental in the afternoon when they've been working buckwheat. But again, I think that's entertaining too, to some degree.
That's usually why when I check my bees in the morning, I got my cup of coffee with me too, so I'm an early morning bee checker. Just because I don't want to make them mad.
Yeah, exactly. And you gotta realize too, anytime you're in a hive, you're disturbing that hive.
Yeah,
And so it's gonna hurt that hive for the rest of the day. Okay, that has messed up their balance of flight activity, shall we say.
yeah,
And they're gonna see that impact for a while. It's just when you walk away, that impact just is not over immediately.
yeah,
And so there's some residual impact there a little bit. I won't mention names because who knows who all's watching this. But I did have one of our beekeepers, Cabarrus County beekeeper, call me. And we was chatting a little bit. And he mentioned something to me I found very entertaining. and hadn't known before. And so I've heard a lot of things speculated before that I kind of go, you know,
Yeah.
maybe that's true, maybe it ain't. But this guy's a pretty reliable source. Tells me at his house he has some banana trees. And I've seen banana trees before. I've seen some at Lake Norland, some down at Albemarle. The guys had planted in pretty good sheltered location, shall we say. And they actually had bananas on them. They produced bananas, not big ones now, but little short, maybe 2.5, 3-inch bananas. But I've seen that. So I'm not strange on that. He has to have some banana trees, okay? And they got bananas on them, okay? And guess what? He tells me these bananas are blooming. He says the bees love it.
Really?
So the bees are covering up the flowers from daylight to dark all day.
Well, we need to go get us some banana trees.
So maybe you need to go into banana tree production and
Hey.
Who says you can't eat a small banana?
Yeah,
I mean, so what? So you eat 3 of them instead of 1.
that's right. Just,
And you don't eat bananas the day you're working bees no way.
yeah.
So that might be an option, but
That might be it.
that's something I never heard before, was the fact that bees were working the banana flowers.
Yeah. That might be a little side gig I can get into.
There you go, there you go. Yeah. And at the farmer's market, that's pretty unique.
Oh, yeah.
This is Cabarrus County grown bananas.
Yeah. You probably have some people argue with you about that. So, no, I promise. I'll show you the trees.
And oddly enough, he says he does not take his trees in the wintertime.
Really?
He says they freeze down, okay, to kind of stump type situation, but they come back the next spring, so it's no problem.
How about that?
And I would not have thought that, but again, I'm not a banana expert, but it was interesting to hear that the bees actually work the banana blossoms throughout the whole day.
I might have to get me some banana trees. You have to tell me who that is.
I will.
Maybe I could get them to donate a banana tree to my cause.
That's possible.
Yeah.
That's possible. But again, I don't think we can ever depend on this one flower.
Yeah.
Okay. Having a fruit tree, well, that one fruit tree is not going to make a huge difference. But again, it still adds up. Every little bit adds up.
Yeah.
And just that diversity of pollen, if nothing else, adds up.
That's right.
And so I don't think it's a bad time to do things. And now that we're talking about planting a little bit, this time of year is the ideal time to be planting crimson clover, okay? And it's gonna come up, it's gonna grow through the fall a little bit, then the winter is gonna pretty well stop for a little while, but it won't kill it. The next spring it's really gonna grow, get on up some height and start blooming. Bees love it.
Yeah.
Bees love it. And it's something you can make honey from. Like I say, you can make honey from it. And it needs to be planted this time of year though, okay? Planting it next spring won't do it.
Yeah.
You gotta be planting now if you're gonna make honey next year on it. And so, again, you can work up a spot a little bit, don't have to be very deep. Color packing it, even if you don't have the ground worked up very much, will make a difference.
Yeah.
It pushes that seed in contact with the soil, makes a huge difference on it coming up. But that's a good plant to be planting this time of year. I also would not rule out your greens, like turnip greens, just any kind of fall greens. It's time to be planting them.
Yeah.
And so what, you just plant a little bit more than you normally would, okay? Again, color packing really helps them when the forest's coming up. But next spring, guess what's gonna happen? They're gonna bolt.
Yeah.
They're gonna bloom those yellow flowers. They awful beautiful looking, and the bees love it.
Yeah.
Again, the bees love it.
That's an early nectar source for them
It's a
too.
very early nectar source. It's one of the earliest nectar sources to get right into,
Yeah.
and the bees will work it hard.
Yeah.
And again, that helps set the seed. That then you can, when them seeds get hard, you can save those seed and plant them again.
That's right.
You don't need to buy seed every year.
That's right.
So again, but it's time to be doing that now. Okay, you can't wait till next spring and do it. It's time to do it now.
That's right. Well, what else you got, Bob?
That's about it, as far as I know.
Sounds good. Well, look, we appreciate y'all watching. And if you're watching this on YouTube, if you would, reach over there and hit that little thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We have a whole library of videos on our YouTube channel that we've recorded over the years. A lot of them are presentations at our monthly meetings. So there's a lot of stuff on there to watch other than just me and Bob. That's a good thing.
Thank goodness. Yeah, thank goodness.
All right. All right. Appreciate y'all watching and have a great day.